We got our first taste of what we're going to get from Coreset 2020. 3 planeswalker cards. Upcoming, we have Chandra and Chandra and Chandra. Alright then. Greetings, owners of fine luxury cardboard rectangles. Welcome to Chandra the Chandraing. We are here today to Chandra some Chandras. So pull your Chandras up, put on your Chandras, and let's Chandra. So what's going down? We have 3 cards that were just shown to us specifically from Core 2020. All of them are different iterations of Chandra. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through them mechanically, and then we're going to go back and take a bigger look at the artwork and talk about the flavor behind it, because we're actually being given a tiny bit of insight along with the cards as well in the article that these were spoiled in. So we're starting out, I'm going to do them in the order that they are going to be shown in the article, and the order of basically like Chandra's growth as a character, because these are meant to represent different stages in her existence. We're going to start out with Chandra, Acolyte of Flame. This is 2 red and a colorless for a 4 loyalty planeswalker. It has 2 0-cost activate abilities, and at first glance you might go, oh, this doesn't have a way to increase its loyalty. But when you read the first ability, you will realize that's not the case at all. The first ability is put a loyalty counter on each red planeswalker you control. So not only will she boost herself, she'll boost all other copies of herself that you have out, and any other red planeswalkers you've brought along for the ride. Then her second ability is 0. Create 2 1/1 red elemental creature tokens. They gain haste. Sacrifice them at the beginning of the next end step. And you can actually see in the artwork, you do have 2 little fire elementals represented, and I personally always enjoy it when they have these elements represented. Next up, we have -2. You may cast target instant or sorcery card with converted mana cost 3 or less from your graveyard. If that card be put into your graveyard this turn, exile it instead. So overall, from a mechanics perspective, this seems perfectly reasonable. You get to boost all of your planeswalkers with its 0 ability, red planeswalkers specifically, obviously, and you also have the ability for free to make 2 1/1 tokens. Now, admittedly, you do have to sacrifice them at the beginning of the next end step, so you're going to lose them at the end of your turn, because it's not like you're ever going to be able to activate this on your opponent's turn. There's no way to use planeswalkers' loyalty abilities at instant speed like that. And I mean, it's all right. You can create bodies with it. It doesn't cost you any loyalty, so it kind of balances it out. It's kind of weak, but if you don't feel like growing her loyalty with the first ability or taking some loyalty off with the second ability, it does give you something to do to swing by with some other creatures. It's an okay way to activate Spectacle. And the final ability, casting an instant or sorcery card with converted mana cost 3 or less, is not too shabby. I mean, her 4 loyalty means that off the bat, if you use it for that purpose, you can do that twice. So you'll be able to cast 2 instants or sorceries from your graveyard over 2 turns using her for 3 mana. So that doesn't seem too shabby. And again, I know I normally delve into the flavor. That's after we talk about the mechanics of the card. I did just want to point out the little flame elementals there while we were talking about the mechanics. Next up, we've got Chandra, Novice Pyromancer. Now you'll notice that this one's actually uncommon. If you weren't paying attention, the previous one was rare. So this is an uncommon planeswalker, but it's actually her further along her journey. It's a little interesting to me that you would think that they would go step 1 uncommon, step 2 rare, step 3, well, we'll get to that. But anyways, you would expect it to go uncommon rare, not rare uncommon, because that's going to lead to your expectation for the next planeswalker. So Chandra, Novice Pyromancer, 1 red, 3 colorless, so she costs a little bit more mana to put out overall. It's 4 instead of 3. She's got 5 loyalty instead of the previous 4 on the other card. She is, as I mentioned, uncommon. Now, her ability, her first ability actually ties into the previous Chandra in that the +1 ability is elementals you control get +2/+0 until end of turn. This is a funky concept, in all honesty, where she has learned to control her fire magic more, and as a result she can actually use it to enhance the bodies of pre-existent elementals. And I mean, it's kind of funky to think too that her power is to the level where she can influence elementals that aren't just made of fire, like a lightning elemental, for example, would also be grown with this. But this ties well into the previous Chandra's ability. The second ability is -1, add 2 red mana. And the third ability is -2. Chandra, Novice Pyromancer, deals 2 damage to any target. Now, it's interesting to note that unlike the War of the Spark uncommon planeswalkers, she has the ability to actually boost her loyalty. This is a situation where they're not mimicking the concept from War of the Spark, where you have a static enchantment-like ability and then just minus abilities and maybe a 0-cost ability, something like that. But the planeswalker can never increase in value. It can only decrease in value in terms of loyalty. So this is a departure from that, and this depicts her at the next step. She is now a Novice Pyromancer. We're going to move on to the, actually, you know what, let's talk about the other 2 abilities because I really didn't spend that much time on them. Adding red mana totally feels like a red ability. There are a ton of cards that allow red to add, like here, have an explosive burst, like an explosive burst of fire magic, so that makes sense. And the -2 ability, dealing 2 damage to any target, well, yeah, I mean, she knows how to whip fire around. Just, I whip my fire back and forth, just whip it, you know, that kind of stuff. So that situation, I only did that because my lady's sitting near me and I'm trying to put that awful song in her head because it makes me laugh. Anyhow, let us move on. This one doesn't feel as powerful as the first one, in all honesty, and that's to be expected with an uncommon. Now, we went rare, and then we went down to uncommon. So where does your brain say we're going next if I didn't kind of give you a hint before? You go, well, it's going to be common, right? Nope! Now we're going to mythic rare. So it goes rare, uncommon, mythic rare. A little bit weird that way. But we move on to mythic rare, and we have Chandra, the Awakened Inferno. 2 red and 4 colorless. She has 6 loyalty, so 4, 5, 6. I enjoy the way that the loyalty increases as she becomes more experienced. This spell can't be countered is the top line added to this. Now, some people view this as a similarity to the War of the Spark planeswalkers, but for War of the Spark, the planeswalkers' abilities were like static abilities that affected the battlefield or only had an effect when they were in play. This is not an effect that you get when the card is in play. This is something specifically that only matters when it's on the stack. So she can't be countered, which I like. That's pretty solid. I mean, red is the enemy of blue, so it being uncounterable when blue is a major counter color makes a lot of sense. Now, the first ability is gross. +2 loyalty. Each opponent gets an emblem with, at the beginning of your upkeep, this emblem deals 1 damage to you. This is the idea of setting something on fire and the fire never being quenched. And that is amazing to me. Genuinely amazing. Like that, I really like the idea that she's like an awakened Inferno now, and when she sets you on fire, you stay on fire. That is fantastic, and it's +2 loyalty to do it with an emblem. These things will stack. Each time you activate it, your opponents get an emblem, and it's not just one opponent. In multiplayer, it hits all your opponents. It feels like a really strong loyalty increasing ability. And then -3, Chandra Awakened Inferno deals 3 damage to each non-elemental creature. Another nice tie-in to the previous 2 Chandras, the one that makes elementals, the one that boosts elementals. This one allows you to set everything on fire, all the creatures except for elementals. So that's cool. And then -X, Chandra Awakened Inferno deals X damage to target creature or planeswalker. If a permanent dealt damage this way would die this turn, exile it instead. So this is pretty potent overall. I mean, 6 is a lot of mana to pay for the planeswalker. For some reason I was going to say creature. To pay for this planeswalker, 6 feels like a lot. But what you're getting, just the first activation of the emblem that's like a clock on your opponent automatically, you're going to get to do that no matter what. Once you put it out, they're not going to have the ability to destroy it before you can activate that first ability once. So you have the ability to either set your opponent on permafire, you can do 3 damage to every creature on the board, or you can give up some of her loyalty to do that much damage to a target specifically. So you can hit a creature or a planeswalker with that. So if there's an elemental creature you want to destroy, you're going to have that ability, and that's not nearly as exciting as the fact that she can set other planeswalkers on fire. We're living in the time of War of the Spark, the land of, hey, there's like 45 different planeswalkers in Standard. So an ability to set planeswalkers on fire is extremely, extremely relevant at this time frame. Now, as I mentioned, these cards were spoiled in an article, and the article has some really interesting flavor to it, where basically, let me just pull it up here. It was over on Gizmodo for those of you who are interested. It's called Get to Know Magic's Most Famous Fire Mage in these brand new cards. Now, I'm not going to read the majority of the article. I just want to read the interesting flavor chunks that go along with the particular stages. So we're going to start out talking about Chandra, Acolyte of Flame. And it says, for Chandra, Acolyte of Flame, we were excited about showing her as a student of the Regathan Pyromancers. Visually, this pushed us in the direction of depicting Chandra as more a warrior monk in training. We showed her without a regulator, and if you don't know what the regulator is, you'll notice that it's like her flame gauntlet that enhances her pyromagic. So that's what the regulator is. I don't know if you guys are like me, but whenever I see regulator, I think of that old song, Regulators! Mount up. You know what I'm talking about? Anyhow, let's move on. We showed her without a regulator to emphasize that this was a time in her life when she tried to hone her skills and control her emotions without it. On Regatha, she was surrounded by pyromancers who all understood the nature of fire. If she lost control, there were fewer repercussions than if she unexpectedly blew something up on any other plane. For her card illustration, we really wanted to lean into Chandra's rebellious yet playful attitude. She's clearly supposed to be meditating, but instead is happily creating a fire elemental. Anna Steinbauer did an amazing job bringing this moment to life in her illustration. In the background, she added an amazing extra bit of one of Chandra's teachers looking annoyed at her for not doing her homework. You might have to zoom in for that little gem. So if you want to know what they're talking about in terms of the teacher, if you look, she's on a rock spire. On one side, you have a teacher who's kind of facing off in another direction, and facing directly towards her, you can see on the opposite side in the background, you can see a teacher's actually like he's got his mouth open in dismay as she's supposed to be sitting there like, you know, the Om sort of meditation. But instead, she's got one eye closed, one eye opened, and she's creating these little fire elementals up over her on either shoulder with just... honestly, you know what this makes me think of, truthfully, when I look at it? It gives me like an Avatar, The Last Airbender feel, where it's somebody with a significant amount of power, but they're just playful. It makes Chandra feel like she's got a good heart. She looks cute here, honestly. She looks like a cutie. I love the energy of this artwork. This set in the mountainous bare sort of, like all the bare rock and everything. Rock has no energy of its own, and fire is frenetic and full of energy. So you've got this contrast of like the time-worn kind of stone that you're supposed to sit and be like silent on, and everything is still and calm, and licking up around her, she has two little ephemeral elementals of fire that will only be there for a moment and wink out. But it's like she was just sitting there meditating, and then she was just like, let's have a little fun. It's very, very playful, and I genuinely enjoy it. I love the bright, vivid red of her garments. It's fantastic, and I love the fact that she has a little elemental at each shoulder. This artwork is great. I really, really like what they've done with the different pieces of artwork here and how they lead you along the journey of Chandra growing, because this shows her as a precocious, younger version of herself. She's got her trademark goggles up here. She doesn't have the regulator, but she's got just that funky, fun kind of flavor to her. I really like this. Really, it's really well done, and it's continued on connected in the next artwork too. Let's read the description for that one. With Chandra Novice Pyromancer, we wanted her to have a little more edge to her as she sets out to find herself on Ravnica. She's more confident and excited to strike out on her own. We really wanted to visually plant some seeds that would ultimately take her down the path of Chandra Awakened Inferno. She's wearing light armor, and we see chain links to her outfit. She's also created a new regulator that's a reflection of her experience in Ravnica, City of Guilds. Chandra Novice Pyromancer maintains the lighthearted attitude that we saw in Chandra Acolyte of Flame, but with a little bit more self-assuredness and showmanship now that she's more in touch with her abilities. She has all these amazing powers and is ready to show them off to the people of Ravnica. You can even see the little elemental in her hand reflecting a similar pose as her. And again, I adore this artwork. It does make her look very playful, and the stance that she is doing is like a magician's ta-da! Like where she's mastered some trick and she's happily, it's like almost like a kid showing off a trick to their parents or their friends going, look what I can do! Like, oh yeah, baby! So you've got her, and I love the way she's got the elemental in her hand, with the other hand having been brought back in this kind of emotion, and flames trailing all along her fingers. And those flames feel like they wouldn't have to be there for something elemental. It feels like it's a flourish, an extra touch added by somebody who has a better grasp of what they're doing, honestly. And you can see this is set in Ravnica. You can see the different spires and everything, the architecture. It all is very Ravnican. You can see, as they mentioned, the chains that are swiping across, but still the nice bright red vibrant sort of outfit. The long part of her garment, I don't know exactly what you would call that. Is it a tabard extension? Whatever it is, the long flowing part that was originally like out over the rock cropping on the first artwork has been trimmed down. So there are elements of her previous outfit that you can see, but with some new nods to like how she's come in her journey. You've got the regulator, which is the big metal gauntlet you can see on her arm with the pack. It almost looks like a satchel off to the side, but that is part of the regulator, I think. I think it's part of the regulator. I'm not 100% sure. When you look at the artwork, it could or might not be, but I feel like it's part of the regulator itself. Now, the regulator obviously enhances her abilities. It's cool to see the earlier version where you don't have it, and then you see it here, but she's still very much playful, you know what I mean? She doesn't feel nearly as threatening as she's going to when we move into the final artwork. But honestly, she looks very nice. I like the smile on her face. She still feels very innocent, like she's just playful, and it's like, look what I can do, as opposed to like, I will set this world ablaze. Next up, we're going to talk about the third piece of artwork. Now, under this one it says, in both these illustrations, we explored how we can incorporate nods to Chandra's home plane of Kaladesh. In Chandra Acolyte of Flame, there's elegant filigree found on the trim of her clothing. In Chandra Novice Pyromancer, her chain links are forged to reflect the filigree found on Kaladesh, and her new regulator is reminiscent of the one her father made for her back on Kaladesh. Lastly, with the image of Chandra awake in Inferno, we wanted to capture Chandra as a calm and confident pyromancer fully in control of a very dangerous and almost wild amount of fire swirling around her. Chris Ron did an amazing job creating this dynamic and moody piece for Chandra. She is ready to take on any threat the multiverse has to offer. And it's very true. There is definitely a mood to it. The fact that it's set against this very dark background. When we look at the previous artwork, like just the one we just saw a second ago, it's got a much lighter background, and she's got a very playful stance where it's like, haha, like everything's done to make her feel like she's just kind of goofing around in town. This looks like Chandra, who, like, she's right at the moment where she's about to unleash a massive amount of fire down on somebody. It's amazing that somebody who is a flame can have at the same time such a cold, imperious glance, because she totally looks like, she looks stern. She looks like she is about to tolerate no nonsense and is about to incinerate something that needs to be incinerated. You can see that not only does she have like the fire blowing out from her hair and her hands and swirling all around her, you can feel an extra level of heat in the way that her body looks all reddish. And this is most likely a fact that in the background it's starry nighttime, so the only light that would be lighting her up is actually the light of her flames reflecting off all the different metallic parts of her armor. You can see that she's more armored up. In the previous artwork, she has like armor on the one shoulder. This one, she's got the shoulder plates along with like hip plates as well. I don't know the description for some of these pieces of armor. You can see that the regulator is there as well from the cord, the cable that's running along her wrist. But this really feels like a much more dangerous Chandra than the previous two. This definitely ties into that whole, once I set you on fire, you stay on fire. It ties in tightly with the mechanic, it feels like to me. And I really like the contrast of the dark night sky, and she's just blazing bright as day. It's really, really nice, honestly. I genuinely enjoy this very much. So yeah, this is the point where we've talked about all the artwork, we've talked about the cards. So I guess it's time to roll the golden scroll. These are the people who have my back on Patreon or through channel memberships. I want to thank Richard Lash for joining up on the channel membership side, and I would like to thank Joe Catrona for joining up on the Patreon side. Thank you very much for supporting my channel. It means a lot to me. It puts a smile on my face, makes me a happy boy. And depending on when you guys see this video, back here I have a big, heavy package that I received in the mail today. I don't know what's in it, but we're gonna open it up in a live stream tonight, so you're welcome to come on by and hang out. And I've been having some fun over on Twitch too, so if you want to come by and hang out there, I just call my channel over there Magic Historian. Come on by. That's all I really have to say. Thanks for being here, my friends. Appreciate it. And for now, I'm history, baby.